I still wake up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling like I'm waiting for the past to whisper an explanation. For in the morning, silence thick enough to choke on. I blink into the dark, asking myself the same question over and over. How did everything fall apart so quickly? Not long ago, I was a man preparing to marry the love of his life. Her name was Hannah. And if you'd asked me back then, I would have told you I was the luckiest guy on earth. I know how cliché that sounds, but it was real. At least it felt real. From the moment we met, there was this ease about her, this open warmth that made the world feel quieter when she was near. She laughed at my dumb impressions, always took my hand when we crossed the street like it was instinct, and when she looked at me, man, it felt like I was the center of her universe. You don't forget a look like that. We dated for 4 years. Moved in together during year 2. Talked about kids by year 3. And by year 4, we were planning a wedding like it was the next natural step, not just something we wanted, but something we were both counting down to. We had a venue booked near her hometown, a rustic little place with fairy lights and this oak tree she loved. We picked the colors. We visited florists. We even argued over cake flavors. She was pushing hard for lemon lavender. I kept saying chocolate. Looking back, maybe that fight wasn't really about dessert. She loved the details. I loved watching her love the details. I didn't care if the napkins matched the invites or if the playlist for the reception had too much 90s R&B. Okay, maybe I did care about that part, but mostly I was just happy to be building something with her. I thought we were a team. But hindsight is a brutal thing. It doesn't just show you what you missed. It shows you what you refused to see. The signs started small. Subtle. She got quieter, but not in a way that seemed alarming at first. Just distracted. Some nights she'd sit beside me on the couch with her legs tucked under her, scrolling on her phone and smiling to herself. I'd ask what was funny. She'd say, oh, just Dana being Dana. Sometimes it was Maya sent a meme or work drama. I trusted her. Or maybe I wanted to trust her so badly that I let myself believe those half-answers. She started going out more. Not constantly, but enough that I noticed. Girls' nights. Work meetups. Late coffee dates with old college friends. And every time, there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. She'd hug me before leaving, peck me on the cheek, tell me not to wait up with that casual tone she'd always used. So I didn't. I didn't want to be the suspicious fiancé. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who reads too much into things and ruins a good thing with paranoia. But the distance between us grew. Not physically. She still curled up against me in bed, still held my hand in public. It was something else. Something under the surface. A kind of emotional silence that left too much space between her words. One time I joked that she was married to her phone. She laughed, but not the way she used to. That carefree laughter I loved, the kind that came from her belly and made her nose crinkle, was gone. What I got instead was a polite chuckle. The kind you give a stranger when they make a bad pun at the grocery store. And then came that evening. It was a Friday. I remember that clearly because Fridays used to be our thing. We had this unspoken rule: Friday nights were for us. Takeout, movies, whatever. We didn't plan it, we just let it happen. But this time she told me she was going out to some lakeside bar with just the girls. She said it like it was no big deal. Like it was just a blip in our usual rhythm. I watched her get ready. She took longer than usual. Picked a dress I hadn't seen in months, black, tight-fitting, the kind that made heads turn. Heels that made her a few inches taller and twice as confident. Her makeup was flawless, lips a sharp red that wasn't for casual nights. She spritzed her neck with a perfume I'd bought her on our 2nd anniversary. She never wore it unless it was a special occasion. I leaned against the doorframe and just stared. Not in a creepy way, just observing. Trying to figure out why everything felt wrong even though nothing looked wrong. She caught me looking and grinned. But there was something off about her eyes, like her smile didn't quite reach them. What? She asked playfully. You've never seen me go out with the girls before? I tried to smile back. Tried to play it cool. You look incredible. That's all. She gave a half shrug. Thanks. Don't wait up, okay? She kissed my cheek and walked out the door. The moment the lock clicked behind her, a silence dropped over the apartment like a heavy curtain. I stood there in the hallway, staring at the door, feeling like I just watched someone walk out of my life and into someone else's. It was the way she said, don't wait up. Like it was a line rehearsed too many times. Like she knew I would. And like she knew it wouldn't matter. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being ridiculous. That she deserved a night out. That not everything is about me or my feelings or my insecurities. But the truth? Something inside me had already started unraveling. A quiet, gnawing sense that I wasn't being paranoid, I was picking up on something very real. I went to the living room. Turned on the TV. Scrolled through shows I didn't care about. Opened my phone, stared at our photos. Us at the beach. Us at her sister's wedding. Us laughing, drunk on red wine, dancing in the kitchen. A slideshow of memories that suddenly felt like a stranger's life. Hours passed. Midnight came. Then 1, 2. No texts. No updates. The apartment felt colder than usual. Or maybe I was just seeing it with different eyes. The framed photo of us on the mantel. The wedding magazines stacked on the table. Her sweater draped over the back of the couch. It all felt staged. Like props on a set meant to convince me everything was fine. But I wasn't convinced. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the sliver of ceiling visible above the bed, my thoughts cycling like a broken record. Every minute that passed without a message from Hannah felt like another crack in something I used to believe was unbreakable. Her voice, her smile, even her scent on the pillow next to mine, it all felt suddenly foreign, like a ghost version of someone I used to know. I remember glancing at the clock. 2:46 a.m. The silence in the apartment was absolute except for the occasional passing car outside. I thought about calling her. Just to check. Just to make sure she was okay. But something stopped me. Pride? Fear? I wasn't sure. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened the location-sharing app we both agreed to use when we got engaged. For emergencies, she'd said not to check up on each other. I hadn't looked at it in months. Maybe a year. But that night I did. She wasn't at the lakeside bar. Her location pin hovered over a spot way out of town, some private house tucked into the woods, past the freeway, near the edge of a small lake. Not a cabin rental. Not a restaurant. Just someone's house. A place she had never mentioned in the 4 years we'd been together. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to change. Thinking maybe it was a glitch, a misread. But the dot stayed there, unmoving. My stomach turned. I told myself there had to be a reason. Maybe the girls went somewhere else after the bar. Maybe a friend lived out there, someone I hadn't met. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, clinging to it like a lifeline. But even as I made excuses for her, that pit in my gut kept growing. Around 3:30 a.m. I got up and paced the living room. I didn't bother turning on the lights. The glow of the street lamps outside was enough to cast long, eerie shadows across the walls. Our framed engagement photo stared at me from the bookshelf, me in a blazer, her in a white dress with bare shoulders, eyes closed and smiling like she knew exactly where her future was headed. That photo used to make me feel lucky. Now it just felt like a lie frozen in time. I sat back down on the couch, scrolling through my phone, mind racing. I checked her Instagram, no updates. Facebook, nothing. I even looked at her friends' pages, hoping for a tagged post, a check-in, anything to anchor her to the truth. There was nothing. Sunlight started to bleed through the blinds around 6 a.m. That's when I heard the key in the lock. She stepped in quietly like she was trying not to wake a sleeping house. Her heels were in one hand, the other clutching her purse. Her makeup was faded. Her hair slightly tangled. And something about her was just different. She smelled like a stranger. It wasn't her perfume. It wasn't alcohol. It wasn't even sweat. It was this subtle, haunting blend of something foreign. A scent I couldn't place. And I hated that I noticed it. She didn't see me sitting in the dark until I cleared my throat. She froze for a second, then glanced over at me with a look that flickered between surprise and guilt before settling on something neutral. "Hey," she said softly, like she'd just gotten back from a late-night shift at work. "Didn't mean to wake you." I said nothing. She walked into the bedroom without another word. The door clicked shut behind her, and I just sat there in the half-light, the hollow ache in my chest throbbing with every heartbeat. I didn't follow her. That silence between us the next morning wasn't planned, but it was mutual. She woke up hours after I did and moved around the kitchen like a guest. Poured herself coffee. Said nothing about the night before. I didn't ask. I just watched. She told me she crashed at Dana's place. Said they all got tipsy, ended up out late, and that she must have forgotten to text. She offered the excuse so casually as if she'd read it from a script. Like she had it locked and loaded. I nodded. Smiled even. Told her it was fine. But inside, something had already snapped. Not loud, not violent, just a quiet, clean break. A shift in the way I saw her. Like I'd been looking at her through a window and suddenly the glass shattered. Later that afternoon, she took the dog for a walk. That's when I picked up her phone. It still had the same password. She hadn't changed it. I don't know what I expected, guilt? Shame? But what I found was worse. She had a group chat pinned to the top of her messages, one I'd never seen before. I tapped on it. Mixed names. A few I recognized, most I didn't. Guys and girls. Jokes flying back and forth. Inside memes. One message sent at 1:14 a.m. that morning said, "What a night." Faced with tears of joy, Hannah loosened up fast. There were photos. Grainy and low light, but clear enough. Hannah holding a red cup, grinning. Sitting on someone's lap. Arms wrapped around her waist. A fire pit in the background. That same house from the location tag, I was sure of it. And then, below that, a private chat with someone named Brian. His profile picture was just a car, nothing revealing. But the conversation told me everything I needed to know. "Brian, you're fire. Can't stop thinking about you. Hannah, you're trouble." But I liked it. Winking face. I stared at that stupid emoji for a full minute, just breathing. In, out, trying to convince myself it wasn't what it looked like. That I was misunderstanding. That I didn't know the context. But I did. I knew exactly what it meant. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't her being confused. She made a choice. She smiled for someone else. She touched someone else. She let herself be adored by someone who wasn't me. And then she came home. She walked through her door, climbed into her bed, and lay beside me like nothing happened. She said, "I love you," before falling asleep. She pulled the blanket over both of us and breathed in rhythm with mine. That was the part that K** led me. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Not even Brian. It was the ease. The absolute effortlessness with which she played the part of the woman who loved me. Like she'd done it so many times it had become muscle memory. I put her phone back exactly the way I found it. Screen off. Face down. Locked. Then I sat in the kitchen for 2 hours straight, staring at the wall, trying to figure out what kind of person I'd been in love with. And how long she'd been pretending. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even break anything, even though every nerve in my body told me to do something, anything. I just sat there, hollowed out, letting the truth sink in. It was over. She just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I woke up before her. Not because I wanted to, because I couldn't not. My eyes opened before the sun even cracked the horizon, and my body felt like it had been in a fight. My muscles ached, my throat was dry, and I couldn't tell if I had actually slept or just passed out from emotional exhaustion. She was still curled up under the blanket beside me, her breathing slow and even. Peaceful. That part got me. How could she look so at ease while I felt like I was falling apart right next to her? I slipped out of bed carefully and sat on the edge, staring at the floor for a long time. I could hear birds outside. Someone's sprinkler had kicked on. The world was waking up like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. Made coffee on autopilot. The smell filled the apartment, but I didn't want it. Didn't want anything, really. I just needed to move. I needed to keep doing something, anything, so I wouldn't start screaming. When she finally walked into the kitchen, she looked at me like everything was fine. Like we were still who we'd always been. "Morning," she said, rubbing her eyes and yawning. "You're up early." I nodded, sipping from the mug I didn't even want. She came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist, and rested her chin on my shoulder. That used to feel like comfort. This time, it felt like a trap. "We really need to pick out a caterer this week," she murmured. "Caterer? Wedding? Us?" I said nothing. She peeled off and went to feed the dog. I watched her move around the kitchen like everything was normal, and it made me feel sick. I didn't want to confront her, not yet. I wasn't ready for the aftermath. I wasn't ready to hear the lies out loud, to watch her spin some soft, apologetic version of the truth where I ended up the crazy one for snooping. So I played along. I nodded when she talked. I smiled at the right times. I laughed even once or twice, short, bitter reflexes that passed for amusement. That afternoon, she dozed off on the couch after walking the dog. I waited until her breathing got heavy, then reached for her phone again. I know I shouldn't have. I know it makes me look like the villain in someone else's story. But I needed to see it again. I needed confirmation, something concrete to hold onto when she inevitably started spinning. The password was the same. She hadn't changed it. I opened the chat with Brian. More messages. Nothing overtly graphic, nothing you could use in a court of law, but an asterisk made in the way that people are when they forget they're not supposed to want each other. "Brian, last night was a dream. Still thinking about the way you laughed. Hannah, you're impossible. I should block you. Brian, but you won't." Winking face. "Hannah, no. I won't." There was a photo she sent too. Not revealing, but personal. Her in that same dress she wore to the lakeside bar, biting her lower lip, posing like she was teasing him through the screen. It wasn't for me. It had never been for me. I backed out of the chat, heart pounding, and checked her camera roll. She had deleted the photos from that night. Every one. But she hadn't deleted the trash folder. I opened it. There they were, uncropped moments of the evening she told me was just a girl's night. Her sitting on someone's lap, laughing. A bonfire in the background. Red Solo cups, a bottle of tequila in the center. One photo showed her and Brian with their foreheads touching, like some tender indie movie still. She tried to erase them. She hadn't erased enough. I locked the phone and set it back beside her. She shifted a little on the couch but didn't wake up. I just stood there, watching her, trying to imagine how we'd gotten here. How the woman who once cried during a Pixar movie in my arms could cheat and still kiss me goodnight like nothing was wrong. That evening we made dinner together. Or rather, she made it and I hovered. She asked me to chop onions. I did. She played music on her phone and danced a little, swaying her hips to some old pop song. At one point she leaned in and kissed me and I let her. I let her because I wanted to know what it felt like now. It felt cold. Like someone borrowing a memory of love to cover up what they'd done. We ate pasta on the balcony, her talking about work and how one of her coworkers kept mispronouncing Chipotle like it was a national emergency. I nodded, sipped my wine, stared at her mouth as she laughed. Wondered if Brian had kissed that same mouth the night before. Wondered if she whispered to him the way she used to whisper to me. When she leaned into me and said, "You've been quiet today," I gave her a soft smile and said, "Just tired." And it was true. I was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of trying to believe the version of her I had in my head still existed. The next day, I took the long way home from work. Stopped at the park where we'd first said, "I love you." Sat on the same bench. The air smelled like grass and city dust. I watched some kids chase pigeons. A man nearby played guitar, out of tune but confident. I used to feel safe in this city. Now everything felt painted over with something fake. I thought about confronting her that night. About laying the phone on the table and asking her to explain every message, every photo, every lie. But I didn't. Because I realized confronting her would give her power. It would give her a chance to cry, to plead, to twist the truth into something blurry and emotional where I'd end up apologizing for being too intense. No, I wouldn't give her that. I needed something better. Something final. A clean break. A way out that didn't involve shouting or slamming doors or begging for honesty from someone who didn't respect the question. So I started planning. I got a small notebook. Wrote everything down, every detail from that night, every screenshot asterisk I saved. I opened a private email account and forwarded everything there. Just in case. I began moving my money into a separate account. I opened a safety deposit box and stored backup copies of everything. Quietly. Patiently. All while she kept pretending. She kissed me good morning. She laughed at the shows we used to watch. She showed me photos of centerpieces for the reception. She leaned on me at night, her head against my chest, like she couldn't hear the silence I was building between us. I looked at her and wondered if she knew. If she could sense that something was ending. If she felt the edge in my voice or the chill in my touch. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. That was the part one hated most. Not the cheating. Not even the lying. It was how easily she seemed to live in two worlds at once, one where she was mine and one where she was someone else entirely. How she smiled at me with the same mouth that whispered into someone else's ear. How she kissed me like nothing had changed. But it had. Everything had. And the moment was coming when I would show her exactly how much I didn't sleep that night. Again. The bed felt colder, somehow, even with her lying inches away. She was curled up under the blanket, back to me, breathing slow and deep. Peaceful. Like always. But peace was the last thing I felt. I stared at the ceiling, blinking through the dark, watching faint shadows twitch across the room as cars passed by outside. I replayed everything. Every message. Every deleted photo. Every excuse she'd handed me like candy, sweet on the outside, rotten underneath. The lies weren't even clever. That's what stunned me most, they were lazy. She didn't think I'd check. Or worse, she didn't think I'd care enough to look. That's when it hit me, she didn't respect me anymore. That realization felt heavier than any betrayal. Not just the act, but the quiet dismissal of everything we'd built. The easy way she dismissed me with those little phrases, "Don't wait up, it wasn't a big deal, I forgot to text." Like I was a background character in her life. A placeholder. Furniture. Around 5 a.m. I got out of bed, careful not to wake her, and sat in the living room in the dark. The city was just starting to stir. Birds chirped outside, soft and oblivious. The kind of morning that used to make me feel alive. Now it just felt like the beginning of another day I had to get through pretending. I wasn't angry, not in the screaming, table-flipping way people imagine. I was something worse. I was resolved. I decided I wasn't going to confront her the way I originally planned. No grand speech. No guilt-tripping. No asking questions she'd just lie her way through. I wanted out clean and quiet. I wanted her to feel the weight of the silence she created. I wanted to be gone before she even realized she should have fought for me. And just like that, the plan started forming. 2 days later, she asked me if I wanted to have lunch with her and her girlfriends. Just a casual thing, she said. They want to see you. I said yes. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see them for myself. Or maybe part of me needed to be in the room with the people who helped her live the lie. We met at a little place downtown, trendy, lots of natural light, exposed brick, the kind of spot where people take selfies with their mimosas. She wore a flowy sundress, light makeup, that same sparkle in her eyes she used when she was trying to look effortlessly happy. Like nothing was wrong. Like her world hadn't already started quietly burning down. The lunch was normal on the surface. Laughter. Catching up. Me pretending. But beneath it all, I watched everything with new eyes. I caught the shared glances between her and her friend Dana, the way they changed the subject quickly when I leaned in. The way one of the girls, Ashley, I think, kept biting her lip every time I said something nice about Hannah. Then came the moment. I had just paid the bill for the table. An expensive one, too. I walked back from the register, and as I rounded the corner, I heard Dana giggle and say under her breath, clear as day, well, the walking ATM came in handy. She didn't even whisper it. Just said it like it was normal. Like it was a joke they'd made before. Hannah laughed. Not the big, belly-deep laugh I used to love. This one was shallow. Plastic. Something inside me snapped, but not in a loud, destructive way. No fireworks. Just a clean, sharp break. Like a bone that's finally given up after being cracked too many times. I didn't say a word. I just walked out of that cafe. Didn't even turn around to see if she noticed. I went straight to the bank. Closed the joint account. Moved everything to a private one under my name. I left her a small amount, enough to not cause an immediate panic, but not enough to coast. Then I turned off my phone. Permanently. I left the device on a bench outside the bank. Let the battery drain into nothing. That evening, while she was texting me God knows what, I was already halfway out of the city. I packed a duffel bag, took my passport, my laptop, a few clothes, and left everything else. The apartment, the photos, the couch we picked out together. Gone. I didn't want a trace of the life I'd built with her. Because it wasn't real. It was a story I told myself. I left a letter on the kitchen counter. Just a few sentences. Nothing dramatic. Just enough for her to understand. I know. About the night. About Brian. About the messages you deleted but didn't empty from the trash. There will be no wedding. By the time you read this, I'll be far away. I hope it was worth it. That was it. No signature. No threats. No begging. Just silence. The kind she had given me for months. I drove across state lines that night. It was raining hard. Wipers slashing across the windshield in rhythm. I didn't play music. I didn't make any calls. I didn't cry. I just drove. There was a cabin I remembered from college. Nate's uncle owned it. We'd stayed there once, years ago, during a fishing trip. I called Nate from a gas station somewhere outside the city. He answered groggy. Hey man, I said, voice hoarse from hours of silence. Can I borrow the place? He didn't ask why. Just gave me the garage code. Pine trees. Wooden floors. Dust. Silence. That's what greeted me. And for the first time in what felt like months, I could finally hear myself think. I didn't bring anything that reminded me of her. No photos. No mementos. Not even the watch she gave me for our anniversary. I left it on the bathroom sink. I wanted to disappear. Not out of shame. Out of survival. I needed to go where she couldn't find me. Where the sound of her laughter didn't echo off the walls. Where I didn't have to pretend I didn't know. I didn't need closure. I needed distance. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built an entire parallel life, full of half-truths and private jokes and messages she never meant for me to see. She had let me hold her every night, knowing full well she was someone else's fantasy during the day. And now? Now she could keep that fantasy. Because I wasn't coming back. The first full day after I left, I didn't speak a word. Not to anyone. Not even to myself. There was no cell service at the cabin. No internet. Just trees that hissed in the wind, the occasional creak of old wood, and the distant rush of water from the lake about 50 yards downhill. I didn't check the time. I didn't shave. I didn't think past the next hour. That was the point. There were no mirrors in the cabin except for one above the sink in the bathroom. I avoided it for days. I didn't want to look into my own eyes and see the man who'd let himself get played like that. I didn't want to ask the questions I already knew the answers to. Instead, I cleaned. I chopped firewood. I swept the porch. I found an old paperback someone had left behind, The Old Man and the Sea, and read it twice in one sitting. I stared at the ceiling and wondered if she'd read the letter. Wondered how long it took for her to realize I wasn't coming back. Wondered if she cried. Or if she just called Brian. I turned my phone on after 3 days. Not because I wanted to talk to her, I didn't, but because part of me needed to see it. The proof that I'd become a ghost in her world. That's what she called me once, early in our relationship, my ghostwriter. She'd laugh because I helped her edit all her emails when she applied for her dream job. Funny how people name things they're not afraid to lose. The phone lit up like a dying star. 17 missed calls. 46 text messages. A few voicemails. The first ones came the morning she found the letter. Where are you? Babe, what is this? Is this a joke? Call me. Then came the panic. Please. We can fix this. Just talk to me. If this is about Friday. I swear it's not what you think. Then rage. You're overreacting. If you just left me, then maybe I never needed you in the first place. I read every single one. I didn't reply to any. She didn't deserve my response. She didn't get to know where I was, how I was doing, what I was thinking. I wasn't hers anymore. I powered the phone off and dropped it in the drawer by the bed. Didn't touch it for another week. Out there, I started to breathe again. Not deeply, not fully, but for the first time in months, my breath didn't hitch in my chest every time I thought about her. I sat on the porch every night with a cup of tea, watching the sun drain into the horizon like a wound closing in slow motion. The world out there didn't care about Hannah or Brian or weddings or texts that said you're fire. It was indifferent. And somehow that comforted me. She, on the other hand, was unraveling. I could feel it through the silence. When I finally checked my email on a borrowed hotspot from a hardware store an hour away, there were messages from mutual friends. Not many, but enough. One from Maya. Hey, I don't want to get involved, but she's freaking out. She keeps saying you ghosted her. She's telling people she's scared something happened to you. I don't know what's true and it's none of my business. But if you're okay, maybe just say something. I didn't respond. Another from her sister, Liz. You owe her at least a conversation. You can't just vanish. It's cruel. I sat with that one for a long time. Reread it. Cruel. Like sneaking into someone else's arms and then into my bed? I clicked archive. Somewhere around week 2, I started purging everything. I called the landlord from a payphone and told him I wouldn't be renewing the lease. Told him to send the deposit refund to a P.O. box I opened under a different name. He didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. I canceled every joint subscription, Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime. I left the password recovery emails open on the laptop for her to see if she ever checked. Let her figure it out one cancellation at a time. Petty? Maybe. But it was mine. I called the caterer. Canceled the wedding. The deposit was non-refundable. Whatever. Worth it. Then I closed the wedding website. Erased the registry. Took down the save the date page. Deleted the email account we used for planning. All of it gone. One by one, I disappeared from the life we had built. And with each small deletion, I felt a little more like myself. Not the man she shaped and softened and turned into something easy to lie to. The real me. The one who noticed. The one who left. What surprised me most wasn't how angry she got, it was how fast the silence came once she realized I wasn't going to play. No grand apology. No 11th hour tear-filled voicemail. Just quiet. Maybe she moved on. Maybe Brian helped her relax again. Or maybe she realized I wasn't bluffing. The silence didn't scare me. It was welcome. Because in the silence I started hearing something I hadn't heard in months, my own voice. My instincts. My thoughts, unfiltered by her reactions or my fear of confrontation. For the first time, I started thinking about how much of myself I'd given up. Little things. Like how I stopped watching certain shows because she couldn't get into them. Or how I stopped cooking with garlic because she didn't like the smell. Or how I started editing my texts to make sure they sounded cool enough. That's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just reveal what someone else did. It shows you what you allowed. I kept a journal while I was out there. Filled it with random notes. Things I wanted to remember. Not about her, but about me. You used to laugh louder. You haven't written music in 3 years. You miss your brother. Call him. You hated her lemon lavender cake idea. It was always terrible. You're still here? That last one hit the hardest. Because I was. I was still here. Not whole, not okay, but here. And that mattered more than I realized. By the end of the 3rd week, I had a beard, a stack of firewood taller than me, and a new sense of clarity. Not closure. I don't think you ever get closure when someone tears a hole in your trust like that. But I had something else resolve. I wasn't going back. Not for answers. Not for explanations. Not even for the satisfaction of a final conversation. She had spoken loud enough in her silences, in her smirks at her phone, in her replies to Brian. Now it was my turn to be quiet. She didn't get a goodbye. Only absence. And that would have to be enough. A week after going silent, I turned my phone back on. The messages were a storm, desperate texts, voicemails ranging from sobbing apologies to veiled anger. First, please just talk to me. Then, you're being dramatic. And finally, if this is who you are, maybe I never knew you. She didn't miss me, she missed control. That was clear? I said nothing. Every attempt she made to reel me back felt calculated, like she was still trying to frame herself as the victim. But she'd already written her ending. I was just finishing the last page. I began dismantling our life piece by piece. I canceled the lease, rerouted my mail, deleted our joint Spotify playlist. The little rituals we built together, I cut them all. Her name stopped showing up in my inbox. Friends started choosing sides, mostly by staying silent. I didn't care. I wasn't looking for comfort or justice. I was looking for air. And every time I felt the sting of missing her, I reminded myself I was mourning someone who never really existed. Eventually, I called my father. We hadn't spoken much since my mom passed. He didn't ask why I was calling. Just said, come home. When I arrived, he had coffee ready like old times. I told him she cheated. He didn't flinch. Then you did the right thing, he said, and that was it. We sat on the porch in silence, watching the wind move through the trees. That silence, for once, felt like peace, not punishment. In that quiet town, I started over. I worked odd jobs, helped Dad fix up the house, went for long walks without looking over my shoulder. I stopped checking social media. I didn't wonder what she was doing. The part of me that once needed answers finally went still. One morning I said aloud, I think I'll stay here for a while. And Dad, with that same quiet wisdom, replied, I figured you might.